It began like any other political panel, low stakes, soft lighting, and the kind of polite discourse you'd expect from a Friday night segment about youth and politics. Most of the audience had tuned in half-heartedly, the kind of background noise that pairs well with scrolling through social media. Jasmine Crockett had been mostly quiet, listening, nodding occasionally, letting others take the spotlight. A former Missouri senator lamented how young people had lost faith in the system. A media analyst returned repeatedly to TikTok's influence. Laughter bubbled from the crowd when someone made an offhand joke about Barron Trump someday entering politics. That was when Jasmine leaned forward, deliberately, almost slowly. Not the kind of lean you make when you're adjusting in your chair. This was different. Intentional. The kind of movement that says, "I'm about to say something you can't ignore." Her voice was calm, her words even, but her message sliced through the atmosphere like a scalpel. "I don't find that funny," she said. "Especially not when we're talking about digital conversations, conversations that may have involved someone using Barron Trump's device." For a few seconds, there was only stillness. No gasps, no immediate outrage. Just that eerie silence that descends when everyone in the room knows they've crossed into unfamiliar territory. The moderator stumbled to respond, asking Jasmine if she really meant what she was implying. She didn't flinch. If it had been any other kid involved in the kinds of digital groups I've been made aware of, that kid would be sitting in federal custody right now, she said. But since it's Trump's child, we act like it's not real. It was a bold statement, one thrown like raw truth onto the table, daring anyone to deny it. A longtime Republican strategist chuckled nervously, trying to brush it off. "That's a cowardly accusation with no proof, Jasmine." Her response was swift. "You want evidence," she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a thick file. The moderator didn't even try to stop her. Maybe he assumed she was bluffing. She wasn't. Inside that folder were pages of screenshots, group chats, Reddit posts, Discord messages, usernames that matched Barron's known gamer aliases, conversations that joked about state secrets, mentions of documents that hadn't even been released. No direct crimes were spelled out, but the implication was chilling, especially when some accounts were linked to IP addresses located in Trump-owned properties, including a wing of Mar-a-Lago. The room's energy shifted palpably. No one laughed now. The strategist tried again, claiming the screenshots could have been doctored. Jasmine was ready. She had already had the material verified by 2 separate cybersecurity firms, one of which had even been used by the Republican Party during their 2020 recount efforts. That landed hard. The moderator attempted to shift the topic, but Jasmine refused. "Barron didn't break any law," she clarified. "But if his last name weren't Trump, this conversation would already be over." Within minutes of the show cutting to commercial, clips of the exchange began surfacing online. A 15-second snippet showing Jasmine holding up the folder quickly went viral. Someone added a meme caption and reposted it. By the time the show ended, Jasmine was trending opposite Barron. What started as an online moment quickly spilled into the real world. Media outlets scrambled. Editors were calling producers mid-broadcast. Meanwhile, Jasmine's team moved quickly, uploading the verified documents to a secure site with timestamps and data logs. No dramatics, just the facts. She hadn't even told her aides she was going to make the information public. Later, she said she did it that way on purpose. Too many people try to stop you when you're about to speak the truth. Far from the flashing studio lights, in a lavish Palm Beach ballroom, Barron Trump was preparing for a scheduled appearance. His team had been gradually reintroducing him to the public, carefully curated photo ops, short speeches, and Instagram-friendly moments. It was all part of a slow build-up, a carefully laid path meant to frame him as a fresh, clean image for the Trump brand. That night, he was supposed to give a short, 5-minute welcome speech to a group of elite Republican donors. Just a formality. Thank the crowd. Smile for pictures. Done. But by the time the cocktail hour had begun, the news had already reached the event. Phones lit up. Whispered conversations spread across the room. A woman reportedly showed another guest the viral clip of Jasmine brandishing the folder. "Do you think it's real?" she whispered. 10 minutes before Barron was set to take the stage, witnesses saw him step aside to take a call. According to those nearby, it was from a former intelligence advisor. Barron's face reportedly drained of color. He asked repeatedly, "Did she really show the chats?" As he walked backstage, a waiter noticed his breathing was shallow. He was hunched, unresponsive. Then it happened, quietly, without fanfare. 1 minute he was standing. The next, he collapsed. No warning. No stumble. Just a dull thud as his legs gave out beneath him. Security rushed in first. A few shouted for medical help. Someone backstage began filming, and though the footage only lasted 7 seconds, it circulated within the hour. It wasn't dramatic. No convulsions, no chaos. Just Barron, leaning against a wall, visibly shaken, blinking rapidly, his hands trembling. The expression on his face was what captivated viewers. It wasn't rage. It wasn't confusion. It was fear. Raw, unmistakable fear. The kind that comes when the life you've curated online begins to fall apart offline. Within minutes, the Trump camp issued a statement. They blamed dehydration, heat, low blood sugar. But few were buying it. It was an air-conditioned ballroom, and Barron hadn't even begun speaking. The cover story didn't hold. By midnight, anonymous sources confirmed to reporters that Barron had been asking questions, which screenshots were online. Did people know it was him? It was clear. He knew exactly what Jasmine had exposed, and it had been weighing on him. Jasmine, for her part, stayed silent about the collapse. When asked about it the next day, she responded calmly, "My focus is on the national security of this country, not the fragility of powerful families." Then she left the interview without taking further questions. Behind the scenes, the story wasn't cooling down. In fact, it was just beginning to boil. The morning after the collapse in Palm Beach, the media storm had become a cyclone. What began as a sharp panel moment had spiraled into national headlines, bringing with it not just online uproar, but quiet dread in the circles that usually walk unbothered by scrutiny. Jasmine Crockett hadn't mentioned Barron's fainting spell publicly, but it didn't stop speculation. Her focus remained laser-sharp on fairness, accountability, and a system that too often bends for the privileged. Her team, meanwhile, worked around the clock. They'd already released the initial files, group chats, usernames, timestamps. The metadata didn't just implicate random kids joking about politics. It pointed to discussions containing terminology that matched confidential memos from the Department of Energy and NATO briefings. These weren't the kind of posts you'd find on a teenage gamer forum. This was serious. A meme posted under the alias Trial eerily mirrored a classified Pentagon document, one that had only recently come under investigation. The connection was too on the nose to ignore. And while no one had yet named Barron as the definitive source, the digital fingerprints, aliases, IP traces, timestamps, all danced close to him. The real thunderclap came from a duo of investigative journalists at the Arizona Chronicle. They confirmed that a private server used in the chats had already been raided quietly the previous month by a cybersecurity task force. Warnings were issued to several parents of minors whose digital footprints had shown up in those logs. But conspicuously, no warning ever reached the Trump family. That detail alone sent the story into a new dimension. The double standard couldn't be ignored anymore. Had someone deliberately kept Barron's name off the alert list? If so, who? The press began probing the networks, while panel hosts on cable shows fumbled their coverage. Their unease was visible, stiff postures, cautious phrasing, almost as if walking through verbal minefields. But Jasmine didn't let up. That Sunday, she appeared on 3 major news segments back-to-back. Each time, she stayed composed, never naming Barron directly but always nudging the question of equal justice. "This isn't about guilt," she said on a Washington morning show. "It's about whether the rules apply to the powerful the same way they apply to everyone else." The host tried to corner her. "Aren't you afraid this is going too far? He's just a teenager, President Trump's son, no less." Jasmine didn't flinch. "I used to teach public school. I've seen kids lose scholarships over a single text. I've written pleas to judges on behalf of students who didn't even know what they posted. And now we're going to pretend like this is normal because of a last name? No, not this time." Her tone wasn't vengeful. It wasn't grandstanding. It was the voice of someone who had sat across from grieving families and expelled students and watched the weight of unfair systems fall hardest on the ones without security teams and lawyers. It struck a chord. By Monday, even conservative analysts began to shift their tone. A Fox News contributor tweeted, "Either the evidence is fake, or someone owes the country an explanation." Another, less sympathetic voice added, "Not a good look for a family building a political dynasty." The Trump circle had, until then, carefully reintroduced Barron to public life. Slow appearances, donor events, quiet campus visits. His image had been polished, less abrasive, more composed, a future heir who could carry the family legacy without the baggage. But that illusion was cracking, and it cracked wide open the night of the Palm Beach fundraiser. Witnesses recalled the chaos behind the scenes. When the screenshots hit the web, staff members scrambled. During cocktail hour, whispers turned to anxious murmurs. A woman showed another guest the viral clip of Jasmine's folder drop and asked, "Do you think this is real?" In the hallway, Barron reportedly paced nervously, phone in hand. He pulled aside a former intelligence advisor and demanded, "Did she really show the chats?" 10 minutes later, his knees buckled. The Trump team released a simple explanation: heat exhaustion, low blood sugar. But no one was buying it. Not in an air-conditioned ballroom, where he hadn't even spoken a word yet. Two anonymous donors later told reporters that Barron was panicked, repeatedly asking what was online and how much people could trace back to him. Jasmine, meanwhile, refused to engage in the tabloid frenzy. When asked about Barron's breakdown, she kept it professional. "This is about national security, not family sensitivities," she said, brushing off follow-up questions. But the silence behind the scenes wasn't calm. It was the kind that signaled internal panic. Inside federal cybersecurity agencies, analysts started digging deeper. One contact at a security firm that had worked with Jasmine quietly told an independent journalist that many of the posts in question had originated from hotel networks owned by the Trump family. That meant these weren't just idle accounts. They were sent from properties tied to known political figures. The digital trail raised a bigger question. If another 19-year-old had shared even one of those files, would they be sitting at home? Or would they already be facing charges? Online, the debate turned fierce. Conservative youth voices tried to frame Barron as a victim. "He's only 19, they said. He reposted. He didn't leak." But the backlash came swift. One viral tweet read, "19 black," and posted the same thing. "Would you call him innocent too?" It hit 1 million likes by the end of the day. Barron's silence made things worse. There was no video, no apology, not even a basic statement. A scheduled podcast appearance with a right-wing influencer was suddenly canceled. A planned campus tour of Georgetown postponed. Whatever hopes the Trump family had for gently polishing Barron's public image had vanished. But Jasmine wasn't finished. By Sunday morning, she was no longer a lone voice raising an eyebrow. She was front-page news. Her office had received 98 missed calls overnight. 2 of her aides had slept on the floor just to manage the media inbox, which had tripled in volume in less than 24 hours. And yet, she picked a local news outlet, KARE 11 in Minneapolis, to tell her story. No big networks. No glamorous studio. Just a quiet, honest interview on a public bench, wearing jeans and a navy blouse. No makeup artist. No teleprompter. "Why'd you do it?" the host asked her bluntly. "You knew what kind of backlash this would create." Jasmine's response came without pause. "Because I've sat across too many mothers whose sons went to jail over a dumb post. I've seen girls lose their future over one message. And I've seen an entire nation pretend that Barron Trump can be raw just because of who his father is." Her voice wasn't bitter. It was firm, measured, like someone who had been holding that story in for a long time. And people noticed. Progressive lawmakers tweeted their support. Even moderate Democrats who had previously kept their distance began to retweet her clips. A few Republicans, off record, told journalists they were impressed, not by the accusation, but by the method. Jasmine hadn't smeared Barron. She laid out facts and let the public judge. Yet the Trump circle was quick to retaliate. One vague press release accused Jasmine of politically motivated smears meant to ruin an innocent young man. But the damage was done. They hadn't even denied the contents of the screenshots. No forensic rebuttals. No alternate narratives. Just cries of media bias and deep state conspiracies. Meanwhile, conservative media split into factions. Some hosts launched full defenses, calling Jasmine's exposé a high-tech ambush. Others, quieter but more curious, began asking the real question. How secure were Trump's digital networks, really? And then, things took a personal turn. That night, Jasmine's home address was leaked online. It began with something as technical as a mirrored protocol, but for Jasmine Crockett, it might as well have been a warning shot. Roland, her trusted cybersecurity contact, had found something disturbing. Someone had duplicated the group's communication protocol, an entire folder structure copied onto 2 other servers. The same usernames, the same conversations, but different hosts. One copy had gone to a server node in South Carolina. The other? Ukraine. Her heart picked up pace. Ukraine. It could have been a VPN tunnel masking someone's identity. Or it could mean someone else was intercepting the data, watching, maybe even harvesting it. Roland didn't jump to conclusions, but he wasn't softening the blow either. This isn't just some teenager's secret chat room anymore, he told her. Someone is cloning this for a reason. Then, something even more unsettling appeared. A username, Whipchest46. Roland traced it to a private email linked to a prominent D.C. lobbyist, one Jasmine had seen more than once laughing it up with top Capitol Hill aides. The dots began connecting. This wasn't about Barron Trump anymore. This thing was bigger. Much bigger. Determined to dig deeper, Jasmine flew under the radar to Durham, North Carolina. She arranged a private meeting with a reporter who specialized in cyber investigations, particularly those tied to private contractor groups with ties to weapons manufacturers. What he showed her chilled her. An archived post from a now-deleted online forum carried the same language, same memes, same tone as what she'd seen in Barron's group chats. And then came a twist. One of the usernames in that post was marked as verified. That didn't just mean someone had created the content. It meant someone with administrative-level access, someone inside, had been part of it. It no longer mattered who was in the room. What mattered now was who let her into the room. Jasmine returned to Washington, D.C. exhausted, her head full of screenshots, timelines, and implications she couldn't yet name. Her phone hadn't stopped vibrating. Some texts came from allies checking in. Others were from unfamiliar numbers that left no messages, just a growing silence that hinted at surveillance. Then, late one evening, she received a text from a reliable contact inside the Office of Congressional Ethics. It said only one word, carefully. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked into a closed-door session with 3 members of the House Cybersecurity Committee and laid it all out. No drama, no dramatic folder flips. Just truth, bullet-pointed. The room sat in stillness. One representative from Oregon leaned forward and asked gently, "Do you believe Barron fully understood how deep this went?" Jasmine didn't hesitate. "I think he understood enough to know he shouldn't be caught." They didn't argue. They didn't question her motives. What they did was listen, and that told her everything. They understood the stakes. Powerful families with access to secure data systems? It wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a systemic threat. And they knew something else too. If she didn't keep the pressure on, this story would vanish. Not with a bang, but with paperwork, bureaucracy, and the slow grind of apathy. When Jasmine stepped out of that meeting, reporters were waiting. But she ignored them. She walked through the long hallway, eyes scanning for something familiar. Then she saw her, a staffer from the Ethics Committee who had once tried to shut her down with a procedural ambush. This time, the woman just nodded. Outside, the summer air was thick. Jasmine lit a cigarette, the first in 6 years. The smoke curled upward into the D.C. haze. But even as she took her second drag, she could feel it. Someone was watching. And not just anyone. Someone who was closer to the Trump family than she had ever imagined. Not through headlines, not through trending hashtags, but through the shift in behavior all around her. Friends suddenly hard to reach. Colleagues giving her the cold shoulder. A staffer who used to greet her in the elevator now looked away. Subtle quiet, but intentional. At around 9 p.m., her assistant Curtis was locking up their small office in Arlington when he noticed something strange. The back door barely open, just enough for a breeze to slip through. He was sure he had locked it earlier. When he checked closer, he found 2 light scratches on the keyhole. Someone had tampered with it. There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing stolen, but it had definitely been touched. Curtis drove straight to Jasmine's apartment in Alexandria, where she was still awake, poring over documents. He showed her the photo. She looked at it, then looked at him. "They're trying to rattle us." She didn't panic, didn't call the police immediately. Instead, she stared him down and gave clear instructions. No more messages through regular phones. From tomorrow, we go burner only. No Slack, no email, nothing that can be traced. She filed a report with Capitol Police the next morning, but she knew how these things usually went. A flurry of paperwork, a few half-hearted follow-ups, and nothing. So she decided to go public. On Friday, she appeared on the Morning Table, a fiercely independent YouTube broadcast out of Oakland that had gained serious traction with Gen Z audiences. They weren't looking for clickbait or platitudes. They wanted the truth, and Jasmine gave it to them. "I don't know who else knew," she began, "but someone let this happen." She didn't stop at implications. She named names, contractors who'd been tied to cyber initiatives under the Trump administration, shady consultants with outdated security clearance, and even a former intern with too much time online. There was hesitation in her voice only when she mentioned the one name she hadn't confirmed. But even then, she pressed on. "If there's anyone in that family who still has a conscience, I hope they're watching this." She had backup. 2 trusted aides drove separately and kept watch over the parking lot. Jasmine arrived alone, no press trailing her, dressed down in a windbreaker. The man she was meeting approached cautiously. Baseball cap, hoodie, oversized sunglasses. When he spoke, she froze. "Logan Myers," he said quietly. She recognized the name immediately. Barron, Trump's former tech advisor. The guy who had been brought in to modernize the Trump Foundation's online security. An upstanding resume, well-spoken, respected, and then, suddenly gone. No tweets. No LinkedIn updates. Just gone. "You were on the server?" she asked. He nodded. "I helped build it." Jasmine's mind raced through everything. IP addresses, timestamps, data dumps. Logan wasn't just a witness. He was the thread that connected all the others. "I designed it as a sandbox," he explained. A space for Barron and his friends to learn code, test games, play with systems. But it spun out of control. New users started popping up. 4-in-1s. Then, real classified materials began to surface in chat threads. "Why didn't you shut it down?" she asked. "I tried," he said. But by then, the back door was open. Jasmine Crockett had thought she was dealing with a small web, perhaps even a glitch in the system. But the moment Roland brought up the word mirrored, her stomach turned. He showed her the server structure again. The original group's protocol had been copied, cloned really, and rerouted to not just one but 2 entirely different locations. One mirror had been sent through a network node in South Carolina. The other was traced to a server in Ukraine. The replication wasn't random. This wasn't just some innocent Discord-like space for edgy teens. This was deliberate, strategic. Roland calmly explained the options. Either someone was trying to disguise their digital trail using a VPN, or worse, someone had hijacked the entire traffic route to intercept sensitive data. Either way, it was clear now. The group wasn't just private. It was being monitored, or worse, exploited. Jasmine's mind raced. Dozens of usernames had surfaced from the server dump. Most were the usual mixture of edgy handles and faceless aliases, but one jumped out. Whipchest 46.